We shall discuss about the effector proteins, and in those effector protein, uh, specifically we shall discuss about the uh, adenylyl cyclase and cyclic AMP. These are the some effector proteins which are having their role in the signal transduction pathway. So, if you look at the activation of the receptor, we have discussed in previous lecture that when the messenger binds to its receptor, for example, we have hormone epinephrine or any other messenger or the ligand, when it binds to its receptor, the receptor will be activated, and in turn this receptor will uh, activate uh, an associated G protein. In this example, in this case, for example, the S denotes the stimulatory subunit of the G protein, and this GS will activate effector protein. The effector protein, I have told you that they can either be enzymes or the ion channels. So if the effector protein, they are enzymes, one of them is adenylyl cyclase, which can also be called as adenylate cyclase. So once this enzyme or once this adenylate cyclase has been activated, the enzymatic site of this adenylate cyclase is towards the cytoplasm, towards the cytosolic surface of the plasma membrane. So once this adenylate cyclase is activated, it will catalyze the conversion of certain other cytosolic ATP molecules to cyclic AMP, which is called 3,5-adenosine monophosphate. It can also be called as cyclic AMP. So cyclic AMP will then behave as the second messenger. So this is the pathway by which we can say that initially the ligand binds to its receptor, and receptor in turn will activate the G protein, and specifically it will activate the stimulatory subunit of the G protein, and this G protein will in turn activate an enzyme which is called effector molecule. An enzyme, preferably in this case, is adenylyl cyclase or adenylate cyclase. This adenylate cyclase, on its cytoplasmic side, it will result in the formation of uh, cyclic AMP from the ATP. It will utilize the ATP molecules, and it will convert those ATP into cyclic AMP. Once this cyclic AMP is formed, it will behave as the second messenger. It will act as the second messenger. So once the cyclic AMP is formed, it will diffuse to the cell, and it will result in sequence of the event, and ultimately cell will produce the response. So action of cyclic AMP is basically terminated when it is broken down to non-cyclic AMP. An enzyme which carry out this reaction is called uh, phosphodiesterase. Phosphodiesterase enzyme will break down the phosphodiester bond, and cyclic AMP will be converted into AMP, non-cyclic AMP. Enzyme is also subject to the physiological control, mean when the concentration of the cyclic AMP uh, is to change, its concentration can be changed by altering the rates of its messenger mediated generation or rates of its phosphodiesterase mediated breakdown. So it means the cyclic AMP can be generated through the messenger mediated interaction, and it can be broken down via the phosphodiesterase enzyme action. So that's how the concentration of the cyclic AMP in the cell, it can be controlled. So here you can see that once this first messenger it binds to its receptor, the receptor will activate the stimulatory subunit of G protein. This stimulatory subunit will activate the effector protein, and effector protein in this case is not an ion channel, it is an enzyme, and that enzyme is called adenylyl cyclase or adenylate cyclase. This adenylyl cyclase or adenylate cyclase, towards its cytoplasmic side, it will convert the ATP into cyclic AMP, and this cyclic AMP is inactive cyclic AMP dependent kinase. It will be, once the cyclic AMP is created, it will result in activation of kinases, and those are called active cyclic AMP dependent protein kinases. And these kinases, they will phosphorylate certain other target protein, and hence the cellular response will be produced. So this is cyclic AMP will be behaving as the second messenger. Here you can see that this is the first messenger, and this is the cyclic AMP which is behaving as the second messenger. So this second messenger will result in ultimate cellular response. The cell will show its response via this second messenger interaction. Okay. What is the function of this cyclic AMP inside the cell? As we have discussed in previous slide and in the previous figure, we have said that it basically activates an enzyme which is called as cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, which can also be called as protein kinase A. We can also call it as protein kinase A. So cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, and it can also be called as protein kinase A, and this protein kinase A will be activated once it is activated by cyclic AMP. So this is major function of the cyclic AMP. Protein kinase, it will once this protein kinase is activated, it will phosphorylate certain other proteins. Some of them are target proteins, and it will phosphorylate by transferring a phosphate group to them. And once those proteins are phosphorylated, their activity will be changed, and they will bring the ultimate response of the cell, and cell will show its response in the form of the secretion, contraction, and many other functions. So it means that protein kinases which are participating in the complex signal transduction pathway, they are having their own substrates, specific substrates. So activation of adenylyl cyclase or adenylate cyclase by G protein, it will initiate a chain or cascade of the events, and in this cascade of the events, proteins are converted in sequence from inactive to active form. Mean proteins are present in inactive form, and once they are phosphorylated, they will be converted into an active form. So it means that when it is active, a single enzyme molecule is capable of transforming into product, not one. Mean one active protein kinase will not phosphorylate and activate only one substrate, rather it will be capable of activating or performing its activity on many substrates. For example, we can say that it can activate, or it can perform its activity on 100 substrates at the same time. So it means that one active molecule of adenylyl cyclase, it may catalyze the generation of 100 cyclic AMP molecules. So here is the diagrammatic representation. Here you can see that this is the messenger, this is first messenger, and its receptor. Once this messenger it binds to its receptor, G protein will be activated, and this G protein will result in activation of one adenylyl cyclase. This one adenylyl cyclase, this activated adenylyl cyclase, can result in formation of 100 cyclic AMP. And these 100 cyclic AMP in turn, they can activate the 100 protein kinases, and those 100 protein kinases can act on the 10,000 substrate, and they can phosphorylate those 10,000 enzymes, and by the phosphorylation of those 10,000 enzymes, we can have 100,000 products. So it means there is amplification in the cyclic AMP system. Mean a single cyclic AMP can result in activation of certain protein kinases, and those activated protein kinases can phosphorylate certain other proteins, and ultimately we can have hundreds and thousands of the products from a single messenger binding events. So here you can also observe the structure of the cyclic AMP, that how cyclic AMP is formed. As I have told you that once adenylyl cyclase is activated on its cytoplasmic side, it will convert the ATP, and ATP are produced inside the cell via the by the electron transport chain, or the mitochondria of the cells are basically providing the ATP. So ATPs are present on the cytoplasmic side. These ATPs are converted into cyclic AMP with the help of um, enzyme that is called adenylyl cyclase, and here you can have 3,5 uh, adenosine monophosphate or cyclic AMP. Here you can see this, there is the phosphodiester bond. This is the phosphodiester bond between the 3 carbon and this is the 5th carbon of this sugar. So this is called 3,5 uh, uh, cyclic AMP or adenosine monophosphate. Only single phosphate is there, and later on, as I have told you, that with the help of the phosphodiesterase enzyme, this cyclic AMP can be converted back into simple AMP or non-cyclic AMP. So here we have the structure of ATP. This is the ATP structure where we have 3 phosphate group. Then this ATP is converted into cyclic AMP by the enzyme adenylyl cyclase, and later on this adenylyl cyclase, once it has generated a sufficient number of the cyclic AMP, these cyclic AMP molecules, they are enzymatically converted into AMP, which is simple or non-cyclic adenosine monophosphate. So at each of the subsequent enzyme activation step, I have told you that 100-fold amplification that may occur. So end result is a single molecule of the first messenger. When it binds to its receptor, it can cause the generation of 1 million product molecules. So it means that hormones and messenger can be effective at extremely low extracellular concentration. Mean a small amount of hormone or a messenger or a ligand can result in huge response in the cell. So for example, if we take an actual example, one molecule of the hormone epinephrine, it can cause the generation and release by the liver of 108 molecules of the glucose. So it means single molecule of the epinephrine, which is behaving as a hormone or the neurotransmitter, it will result in generation of 108 molecules of the glucose from the liver cell. So activation of single molecule, that is cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase by cyclic AMP. This is a common event, and this event is common in great variety of the biochemical sequences and cellular and cell response initiated by the cyclic AMP generating first messenger. So the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase has a large number of the substrate. As I have told you that it can phosphorylate a huge number of the different proteins. An activated cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, it can exert multiple action within a single cells, and it can exert different functions in different cells. Okay. So for example, if we talk about the epinephrine, it will act via the cyclic AMP pathway on fat cell, and it will cause the glycogen breakdown, which is also called as glycogenolysis, and this will be mediated by one phosphorylated enzyme, and triacylglycerol breakdown, which is mediated by another phosphorylation. So it means that phosphorylation, which is mediated by cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, it will activate certain enzymes, and sometime it will also inhibit certain other enzymes. For example, if we talk about the enzyme which is acting in the rate limiting step of the glycogen synthesis, it will be inhibited by the phosphorylation, and that's how we can say that epinephrine inhibits the glycogen synthesis at the same time that it stimulates the glycogen breakdown by activating the enzyme that catalyzes the later response. So it means that the epinephrine simultaneously it is catalyzing the uh, glucose synthesis by the glycogen breakdown, and similarly it also inhibits the glycogen synthesis, means storage of the glucose is also inhibited by this epinephrine. So here you can see that I have told you in very second slide or the third slide that once this cyclic AMP is generated and it has activated a protein kinase which is cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase. This cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase will in turn it will act on many substrates simultaneously. It can have various pathways. So it means that receptor for some first messenger, once they are activated by their messenger, they will cause the adenylyl cyclase to be inhibited, uh, resulting in less generation of cyclic AMP. So this adenylyl cyclase, it can be stimulated by the GS for the stimulatory subunit of the G protein. Similarly, this adenylyl cyclase can also be inhibited by the inhibitory subunit of the G protein, and when this adenylyl cyclase or adenylyl cyclase is inhibited, it means the cell will have the less concentration of the cyclic AMP, because the cyclic AMP will not be produced, and this function is carried out by the GI, where GI is the inhibitory subunit of the G protein, and ultimately the concentration of the cyclic AMP in the cell and phosphorylation of the protein inside the cell, that will be decreased. So here, if you look at this this diagram, these are the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinases. They will act on the microtubule secretion. Similarly, it will as it is kinase, so it may phosphorylate this enzyme 1, and this phosphorylated enzyme is involved in the lipid breakdown. Similarly, we have this protein kinase acting or activating another enzyme 2, and this enzyme 2 may be performing its role in the glycogen breakdown. Similarly, we have enzyme 3. It can also take part in the glycogen synthesis, and this activated cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, it can also have its effect on the DNA synthesis. DNA will be converted into RNA, and when we look at the action of this cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase on the endoplasmic reticulum, here you can see that it will synthesize the protein. It will stimulate the protein synthesis from the endoplasmic reticulum, and it will also control the calcium transport. If you look at here the function of the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, it will result in the formation of active transport of the molecule from their low concentration to higher concentration via utilization of the energy. So it means the variety of the cellular response, they are induced by the cyclic AMP and activated cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase. It can phosphorylate many other different proteins, and it can also activate or inhibit them, and protein kinase is phosphorylating 8 different proteins. For example, it is phosphorylating microtubular protein, and ATPase, and ion channel, a protein in the endoplasmic reticulum, protein involved in the DNA synthesis, and 3 other enzymes. All of them are phosphorylated by this cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase. So this was the first category of the second messenger, or the effector proteins. Those are called adenylyl cyclase and cyclic AMP. We have another group of the molecules which are called phospholipase C, diacylglycerol, and inositol triphosphate. In this system, the G protein which will stimulate. In the previous example, we said that two subunit of the G protein, either G stimulatory subunit in case of activation of the adenylyl cyclase, or GI inhibitory subunit of G protein in case of inhibition of adenylyl cyclase activity. In this case, the G protein subunit will be called as GQ, and this GQ will be activated when first messenger binds to its receptor, and once it binds to its receptor, plasma membrane effector enzyme which is called phospholipase C. This phospholipase C will be activated. And if we talk about the function of this phospholipase C, the phospholipase C, which is the effector molecule, which is an enzyme, It will catalyze the breakdown of the plasma membrane phospholipids, which are known as phosphatidylinositol bisphosphate, which is also called as PIP2. Similarly, uh, this phosphatidylinositol bisphosphate or PIP2 will be converted into DAG. DAG is for diacylglycerol, and inositol triphosphate or IP3. So it means in this system, the effector molecule is phospholipase C, and once the messenger binds to its first messenger binds to its receptor, phospholipase C will be activated by the Q subunit of the G protein, and this phospholipase C will break down the membrane phospholipid, which are called phosphoinositol triphosphate. PIP2 or phosphatidylinositol bisphosphate, and this PIP2 will be converted into DAG diacylglycerol and IP3 inositol triphosphate. So once the DAG and IP3 are produced, they will behave as the second messenger. As in case of previous example, we have said that cyclic AMP is behaving as the second messenger. So this DAG, diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate, they will behave as the second messenger, but they will function in very different ways. DAG, if we talk about the DAG, diacylglycerol, it will activate a protein kinase, and that protein kinase will be called as protein kinase C. In case of protein kinase, which is activated by cyclic AMP, that was called as protein kinase A, where the protein kinase that is activated by the diacylglycerol will be called as kinase C, and this kinase C will phosphorylate a large number of the other proteins, and ultimately cell will show its response. If we talk about the IP3 in contrast to DAG, it will not exert its second messenger role by directly activating a protein kinase. So it means that DAG is directly behaving as the second messenger, and it is performing its activity, and it is involved in phosphorylation of certain other proteins. But if we talk about the IP3 function, once the IP3 has been produced by phospholipase C from the PIP2 phosphatidylinositol bisphosphate, which are the membrane phospholipid, and this IP3 it enters into the cytoplasm, where it binds to the calcium channel on the outer membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, and it will open them. So calcium channel will be opened by this IP3. As the concentration of the calcium is higher in the endoplasmic reticulum than in the cytosol, so calcium will diffuses out into the cytosol, and ultimately the calcium concentration in the cytoplasm will increase. As all of you know that increased calcium concentration in the cytoplasm is necessary for carrying out various important functions. So this increased concentration of the calcium in the cytosol will result in a sequence of the event, and ultimately the cellular response will be produced. So how this G protein can control the ion channels? Another important function of the G protein is that in previous example, G protein was activating the effector molecule, which is basically behaving as an enzyme. And we have discussed in previous lecture that G protein can activate both of the effector molecule. One of them can behave as an enzyme, and second can behave as the ion channel. So in this case, once the first messenger binds to its receptor and G protein activation is there, the activated G protein will not interact with an enzyme, rather it will act the ion channels. So when it will interact with the ion channel, it is having the capacity to gate the ion channel. I mean, it will control the opening and closing of the ion channel. So it means that ion channel can be effector protein for a G protein molecule. So this can also be called as direct G protein gating of the plasma membrane. Ion channel, because the G protein, it will directly interact with the channel, and term gating means closing and opening of the channel. So all the events which are taking place in the plasma membrane, they are independent of the second messenger. So cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, it can phosphorylate a plasma membrane ion channel, and this plasma membrane ion channel, once it is phosphorylated, it will be open. So sequence of the event which are leading to activation of cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, it also proceeds through G protein. So it means that opening of the channel is indirectly dependent upon that G protein. So indirect gating of the ion channel by G protein, it mostly utilizes the second messenger. How the second messenger can be utilized? Here you can see that this cyclic AMP is produced as a result of activation of adenylyl cyclase by the G protein. This cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, which is behaving as the second messenger, here it can also control the ion channel. So it means G proteins are indirectly involved in G proteins are directly involved in controlling the channel opening and indirectly involved in controlling the channel opening and closing. Okay. Similarly, this is called indirect gating of the ion channel or channel protein by the G protein. So there are three ways by which a receptor activation by first messenger, it may lead to the opening and closing of the ion channel. The calcium ion, if we talk about the calcium ion is also behaving as the second messenger in great variety of the cell, and this will produce a cellular response to stimuli. For example, their chemical response or the first messenger or the electrical, the calcium ion will behave as the second messenger. And the physiology of the calcium, if we talk about the calcium as the second messenger, there are two important generalization about the calcium as the second messenger, that how stimuli it causes increased calcium concentration, and when the calcium concentration is increased, the ultimate cellular response is produced. So increase in cytosolic calcium concentration, how that is actually carried out. So first messenger, as I have told you that there are certain first messenger which result in decreased cytosolic calcium concentration, and when there is decreased cytosolic calcium concentration, it means there will be decreased concentration of the second messenger as well, because the calcium is behaving as the second messenger. So regulation of the cytosolic calcium concentration, it is controlled by active transport system. As I have told you that the calcium which moves from extracellular side towards the intracellular side through the calcium channel, that is again uptaken by the cell organelles. For example, calcium is stored in the endoplasmic reticulum or the cytoplasmic reticulum. That's why calcium concentration is always low in the cytosol as compared to the extracellular site or in the cellular organelles. So it means that there is always a huge electrochemical gradient, and this electrochemical gradient will favor the movement of the calcium from the extracellular site to the cytosol via the calcium channel, both in plasma membrane as well as in endoplasmic reticulum. So once stimuli is applied, to the cell, and it will result in active transport system, and the ion channels, when they are activated, the calcium concentration in the cytosol will be altered. So most common way that receptor activation by a first messenger, it will increase the cytosolic calcium concentration. It means that once the receptor initiated sequence of the event, calcium channels which are present in the plasma membrane, they are directly open by an electric stimulus to the membrane, and calcium can act as second messenger in response not only to the chemical stimuli, which chemical stimuli mean those which are behaving or which are acting via the receptors, and electrical stimuli, they can be directly applied to the calcium channels, and those calcium channels are basically called as, those are not legend gated calcium channels, those are the voltage gated calcium channel. So when the electrical stimuli is applied to the voltage gated calcium channel, these voltage gated calcium channel will open, and extracellular calcium will enter to the cytosol. Hence, the cytosolic calcium concentration will increase. So cells, when the calcium concentration in the cytoplasm is increased, cell they can bind to the calcium sensitive channel in the endoplasmic reticulum, and they are also open, as a result of which the cytosolic calcium concentration is increased. So here you can see that first messenger, it will bind to its receptor and it will result in the activation of G protein. Here the GQ subunit, the Q subunit of the G protein, it will activate the effector enzyme or the effector protein, that is called phospholipase C. Phospholipase C will act on the membrane phospholipids, which are called PIP2, phosphatidylinositol bisphosphate. This PIP2 will be converted into IP3 inositol triphosphate and DAG. DAG is the diacylglycerol. Since DAG will result in activation of a kinase which is called protein kinase C. DAG will activate this protein kinase C, and once this protein kinase C is activated, it will phosphorylate certain other protein, and hence we have the cellular response. If we talk about the function of this IP3 inositol triphosphate, this inositol triphosphate after its generation will move to the cytosol. It moves towards the endoplasmic reticulum, and it will result in a release of the calcium from this endoplasmic reticulum, and hence the calcium concentration in the cytosol is increased. So this is the function of this, the mechanism of function of this effector protein. First, we shall look at the function of the calcium, which is behaving as the second messenger. Here you can see that there are common mechanisms by which stimulation of the cell will lead to the increased cytosolic calcium concentration. Once the first step is receptor activation. Once the receptors they are activated, plasma membrane calcium channel open in response to first messenger. This is those calcium channel will be ligand gated or ligand sensitive calcium channel. So receptor itself can have the channel. Sometime, as we have discussed in previous lectures, that sometime the receptor can also behave as an ion channel itself. So if the receptor is itself behaving as an ion channel, when the ligand will bind to this receptor, the receptor will automatically, it will be in open configuration. So it means the calcium channel are the ligand sensitive channels, and receptor may, this is the first category. Sometimes the receptor may activate a G protein, and G protein will open the channel via the second messenger. As I have told you that G protein will activate the another group of the enzymes or the effector molecule, which are either called as adenylyl cyclase, or in the second example they are the phospholipase C. So they will further produce a second messenger, and that second messenger can open the calcium channel. Calcium is released from the endoplasmic reticulum, as I have told you that second messenger, which is IP3. IP3 will, after its generation from the phospholipase C, by the phospholipase C from membrane phospholipids, IP3 will enter into the endoplasmic reticulum, and it will induce the calcium release from the endoplasmic reticulum, and active calcium transport is inhibited by second messenger. So this second messenger, it can increase the cytosolic calcium concentration via opening of the calcium channel of the endoplasmic reticulum, as well as it will also inhibit the active transport of the calcium from the cytosol to the extracellular side. Now once the calcium concentration has been increased, how this increased cytosolic calcium concentration will induce the cellular response. So calcium will bind to the calmodulin. Calmodulin is a calcium binding protein. Once it binds to the calmodulin will change its shape, and it will activate or inhibit a large variety of the enzymes and other proteins, and many of those enzymes are protein kinase. So calmodulin, it will combine with the calcium binding in intermediary proteins other than calmodulin. calcium. Sometimes calcium can also bind with other proteins which are other than the calmodulin, and these proteins they will behave in a manner which is very much similar to the function of the calmodulin. So calcium combined and it will alter the response proteins directly. I mean, without calmodulin, which is calcium binding protein, sometimes calcium can directly bind with the protein and it can alter its function. So here you can see that there is this is stimulus, and first messenger binds to its receptor. So if the receptor is itself behaving as a calcium channel, ion channel, and that ion channel is calcium channel, this ion channel will open and calcium will enter via this channel, and it will enter into the cytoplasm. Similarly, I have told you that IP3 will also result in calcium release from the endoplasmic reticulum. So once the calcium concentration is increased in the cytosol, the the calcium will bind with a calcium binding protein which is called calmodulin. Once the calcium bind to this calmodulin, calmodulin is activated, and this calmodulin will activate a kinase which is called calmodulin dependent protein kinase. And once this calmodulin dependent protein kinase is activated, it will phosphorylate certain other protein, and ultimately cellular response will be produced. So there are multiple calmodulin dependent protein kinases, and they are phosphorylating certain other protein. So it means that small amount of the extracellular calcium which is entering the cell, it can behave as the second messenger, and it can also release much larger amount of the calcium from endoplasmic reticulum. So sometimes this can also be called as calcium induced calcium release. Mean once the calcium is produced, this calcium can itself induce the further release of the calcium from the endoplasmic reticulum, and this is called calcium induced calcium release. So calcium is here is behaving as the second messenger, and the major second messenger that release calcium from the endoplasmic reticulum, that is IP3 or calcium itself. So both of these are second messenger. One of them is calcium itself. It can also behave as the second messenger, and the second is IP3. IP3 can also behave as the second messenger. So how the increased cytosolic calcium concentration produce cellular response? So we have also discussed in the in the diagram that increased cytosolic calcium concentration will result in binding of this calcium to certain other protein, and one of them is calmodulin. Calmodulin will activate certain other kinases which are called calmodulin dependent kinases, and those kinases they will result in phosphorylation of certain other proteins, and ultimately cellular response will be produced. Okay. Now we have okay. Receptor and gene transcription. This is another part of the lecture. As all of you know that receptors are uh, they are either lipid soluble, they are for the lipid soluble messenger. Once they are activated by hormone binding, previously we have discussed the receptor activation in case of lipid insoluble messenger. Here we are discussing about the receptor activation by the messenger which are basically the lipid soluble messenger. So lipid soluble messenger, once they activate their receptors, they binds to their receptors, and they are having their receptors which are present in the nucleus at a specific site that is called HRE, hormone responsive element, and and they will behave as the transcription factor. They will perform their role in the transcription and regulation of the gene expression. So many other transcription factors inside the cells and in the signal transduction pathway, they can also be initiated by the plasma membrane receptors. So uh, by phosphorylation of the transcription factor, this transcription factor can be stimulated, and first messenger, when it binds to the plasma membrane receptor, it can also alter transcription via the second messenger. And for example, three of the proteins which are phosphorylated by cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, they are behaving as the transcription factor. For example, G protein, it basically serves as the switch. It will couple a receptor to an ion channel or an enzymes in the plasma membrane. So G protein will cause the ion channel to open, and it will result in a generation of the signals. In case of calcium channel, as I have told you, that if that ion channel is calcium channel, the calcium concentration will be increased. G protein sometimes can activate with the membrane enzymes. For example, it can interact with the adenylyl cyclase, or it can interact with the phospholipase C. So there are subfamilies of the G protein, and sometimes they may associate it with more than one G protein. So some of the genes which are influenced by the transcription factor, and these are activated in response to first messenger, they are known as the primary response gene, PRGS. So these are also called as immediate early genes, and those which are involved in involving first messenger, and they are influencing the proliferation and differentiation of their target cell. It means that protein encoded by the PRG is itself a transcription factor for that gene. So here you can see that this is the case for the lipid soluble messenger. When the messenger binds to its receptor, this is the first part of the signal transduction pathway. It will activate the proteins which are behaving as the transcription factor, and these transcription factors, they encode the certain genes which are called primary response gene, and these primary response gene, they control the synthesis of different transcription factors, and these transcription factors sometimes they can also control various other genes, and messenger RNA synthesis and proteins, those are also controlled by these multiple transcription factors. So it means that transcription factors which are encoded by the PRG, primary response genes, uh, they are basically relevant to the abnormal growth and differentiation of a typical cancer cell. So how in the last portion, we shall discuss that how we can seize the activity of signal transduction. So signal transduction pathway that can be shut off, that can be seized. Uh, so if we look at the organic second messenger, they can be inactivated. For example, cyclic AMP can be inactivated by the phosphodiesterase C. When phosphodiesterase C enzyme is there, cyclic AMPs can be converted into AMP, or it can be broken down. And when it is broken down, it means that no second messenger is available there. Hence, the phosphorylation and kinase activation is also inhibited, and signal transduction pathway is seized. Similarly, if you look at the calcium, as I have told you that calcium is continuously pumped out from the cytosol either towards the extracellular side, or it is pumped back from the cytosol to the endoplasmic reticulum. So when there is decreased concentration of the calcium, it means the signal transduction pathway can't be further continued. So it means that receptor activation cease is by decrease in the concentration of the first messenger, and when the first messenger activation or the first messenger concentration is low, receptor will not be activated, second messenger will not be generated, and hence the signal transduction pathway is the is seized. So first messenger is metabolized by enzyme, and it can be taken up by the adjacent cells, and it can simply diffuses away. These are the various ways by which we can say that the first messenger concentration is decreased. So receptor can be inactivated in two other ways. The receptor becomes chemically altered usually by phosphorylation, and when the receptor is altered, it is having altered conformation, it will show low affinity or no affinity for binding to the first messenger, and hence receptor is inactivated. Similarly, removal of the plasma membrane receptors occur when the combination of the first messenger is and receptor is taken into the cell by the endocytosis. As all of you know that during the endocytosis, part of the membrane, plasma membrane, also moves inside the cell. So if that part is having the receptor and messenger, it means the receptor concentration of the receptors they have been removed from the surface of the plasma membrane. So these processes are physiologically controlled. The inhibitory phosphorylation of the receptor is mediated by a protein kinase in the signal transduction pathway, and that is triggered by the first messenger binding to that receptor. Mean when the receptor will bind to its first messenger, the receptor will not be phosphorylated, and once this is not phosphorylated, the signal transduction pathway will normally it will proceed. So receptor inactivation, it is basically a negative feedback. So it means that signal transduction pathway do not exist in isolation, but it may be active simultaneously in a single cell, and there is complex interaction between the different cells to carry out the signal transduction pathway. It means that single messenger, it can produce or it can trigger more than one pathway, and a cell may be influenced by many different messenger. Sometimes, often dozens of the messenger, they may stimulate a single receptors. And so various signal transduction pathway, they can be simultaneously, they can be active. Active molecules, for example, generated in the cyclic AMP pathway, they can alter the ability of the receptor, and those receptors which are behaving as the protein kinase to activate the transcription factors. So signal transduction pathway is why it is diverse and complex. It means that in a cell, multiple first messenger, as I have told you that there can be numerous first messenger for a single receptor, or sometimes there are different messenger for different receptors. There are various possibilities which are available. So sometimes they are having more than one ultimate effect, and mean that when there are different messenger and a single receptor, each messenger, when it binds to its receptor, will produce different types of the cellular response. So it means that signal transduction pathway are one of the most diverse and rapidly expanding pathways which are present in the cell or in the biological organism. So here you can see that if you look at the protein kinase, uh, cascade of the protein kinases, and those protein kinases, they will in turn they will activate a variety of the other protein kinases, and hence a cascade of the reaction will produce that. So here you can see that there are different types of the second messenger calcium. When calcium is behaving as second messenger, it will enter the cell through the plasma membrane ion channel, or it will be released from the endoplasmic reticulum. How it will produce its effect. Calcium will activate the calmodulin and other calcium binding proteins, and other stimulate certain protein kinases. Cyclic AMP. So G protein activate the plasma membrane effector enzyme, which is called adenylyl cyclase, which form the cyclic AMP from the ATP. Cyclic AMP will activate the certain protein kinases, protein kinase A. Then we have cyclic GMP. Cyclic GMP is produced from the GTP. As cyclic AMP is produced from the ATP, similarly cyclic GMP is produced from the GMP or GTP, guanosine triphosphate. It will activate the cyclic GMP dependent protein kinase, which is also called as protein kinase G. We have diacylglycerol. When the G subunit or the G protein, it will activate the effector protein or the enzyme phospholipase C. It will convert the membrane phospholipids into DAG and IP3. DAG will activate the protein kinase C. And IP3, as I have told you, that IP3 will, after its production, it will enter into the cytoplasm, and it will induce the release of the calcium ion from the cytoplasm, from the endoplasmic reticulum. So this is all about for today. If you have any question, you can ask us. No question?
No, sir.
Okay.